there is mothers across our country who are saying things like, hey, listen, that computer game is never going to do you any good. And to be honest, majority of the time I tend to agree with them. However, I think there's one good thing that is really coming out of it. The idea of a losing sound in video games. You know, that sort of sound effect, and you know something's gone wrong, and you have to re-energize or you have to respawn or whatever you have to do in that video game. What if we took that idea and added it to pokey machines? What if we helped people who are being addicted realize that they were being addicted? How could we change individual lives, how we could change family lives, how we could change the culture of a country, all through having a losing sound? That's the story of Neil Walshe. We're going to be hearing his story today on Towards Understanding. Just before we do, please make sure you do like, rate, review, share this with friends. It helps us get these stories out to more and more people. All right, let's have a chat with Neil. G'day, Neil.
Hey, Clayton. How you going?
I'm doing very well, thank you. As I was saying to you off air, a little bit of a homecoming for me. It's lovely to chat to somebody in the world of advertising where all of my study was around that. And then just when I finished uni, I decided to actually head into radio. So I always love when advertising can do some good in our world as well. Let's maybe stick around there before we talk about some of the incredible work that you have done through it. Where was that love for you of actually getting involved in advertising and marketing and things like that? Where did that start?
It was actually a strange path. Like, no one, you clearly thought about advertising, but I never thought about it as a thing. I started off being into art and doing graphic design, and then that kind of leads you in to the creative world in advertising eventually.
Yeah, I like that. And so was that sort of all through high school, that sort of idea? You're always sort of playing with art and testing yourself on different boundaries?
Absolutely. Drawing from a little kid, designing in high school, and then just going, doing graphic design at college, and then trying to make it as a graphic designer. But like I was saying, eventually that sort of call into advertising, because you still do design, but you do more ideas and creative thinking when you go into advertising. And that's essentially what led to these sorts of projects, The Losing Sound.
Now, we are going to talk about The Losing Sound in a moment, and it's got to do with helping stem this tide of people just losing so much in pokies. But before we actually get there, could I explore just the personal side for you of some of these other areas that you've been involved in? Obviously, in advertising, there's a lot of, you're just doing some of the churn and burn of the products and the things that need to be a part of it. But you've actually been involved in some other projects which are around actually trying to change society and culture. I'm thinking of things like Greenpeace and even, gun control and things like that in the US. Could you talk to us a little bit about how you got involved in each of those and a little bit of your creative process? And then that might lead us beautifully to Losing Sound.
Awesome. Absolutely, yeah. So, look, as a creative in advertising, occasionally a project will come up that has a bit of charity involved with it. And probably the first one was an NRMA charity, and we were trying to stop people having car crashes. And we were actually, to do that, we tried to stop kangaroos from jumping on the road. And we did it with synthetic dingo wee, right? Spraying it up and down the road. That was sort of my first taste into doing these really sort of fun, cause-worthy projects. And then from there, I got in touch with a gun control organization over in America, and it was actually the kids from, I think it's called Stoneman Douglas High. They were in a shooting, and they started a massive protest. It would be the big famous protests that you've seen on TV with the students. And I actually did the world's largest digital gun control protest in a game called Fortnite for them. So we got all these really famous players to drop their guns online and show the world that you don't actually need guns. That was a massive. It was so fun doing that, just working with so many different people and getting an actual movement to happen. And then the next one, which you mentioned, which was probably the most recent one, was just working with Greenpeace to actually help with a lot of their ocean campaigns. I live near the ocean, and I'm a big fan of the ocean. I love it, and it was a bit of a calling to me to help them when they've got a lot of campaigns. There's always people drilling for gas just off the coast, and they don't want these beaches destroyed. And so I helped them with a bunch of their campaigns that just got them more awareness and donations.
I love that. It's then also led you along the way to, obviously you have a social conscience across that and wanting to make a difference. And it has led to this idea of losing sound. So as we sort of get to what this is, could you talk to us a bit around why for you, you thought, hey, look, I've got to try and do something about what is happening with the pokies. I suppose a few of the stats we've certainly talked about on this program, Australia essentially has the highest per capita rate of pokies and things like this. It's sort of off the charts compared to the world. And so there is a lot of issues that come about with it. But for you, was it a personal story? Was it something you'd read in the news? What was the reason for you that you said, I want to start to look at how I can change the world in this way?
Yeah, funny. The pokies never really bothered me in any major way. Like I never was into them. A lot of friends are, but they're not massively addicted gamblers. They'll just spend $50 when they go to the pub, right? And that went on through, your 20s and into your 30s. And then there was a moment in our close family when a relative found out that their partner had lost about 150 grand of like pure savings that was hidden in an account on the pokies over the course of about a year or two. And that was just like it was an eye-opening moment for them. It broke up their family. It caused a lot of turmoil, depression, all sorts of things. And from that moment on, this was about 10 years ago that we found out about that. From that moment on, I had probably a deep seething hatred for them. And I just didn't like him for a long time. Then it would have been about a year ago, just before this project kicked off. I was at a pub lunch with some friends, and they went to play the pokies. I went with them, and I was standing around just listening to the pokey room, and all you can hear is winning sounds everywhere, right? Winning, 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 winning. And then I realized that, hang on, my mates they're not winning and they're walking out without any winnings. And I asked a buddy, I go, are there any losing sounds in these machines? And he's like, had never thought of that, but no, there aren't. And so, yeah, from that moment, I was like, I think I want to do something about that. I want to create a losing sound. And that's when it started.
I love that. And when you think about it, it makes sense too, right? Like our senses have a part to play in how we feel, what we do, the way we act. We understand all these things naturally. And we even, sort of look at that from, if people are playing video games or if they're, we're watching in movies, and we know if we change the sound behind a dramatic scene in a movie, it's nowhere near as dramatic. And so we understand the value of this. I love that this was this moment that you decided to do that. What did you then do? Right, so here's the idea. Okay, I want to try and create a losing sound. There's a long path from where that is to how do we actually get that in place? What was your first thoughts of the first things to do?
I actually didn't think it was going to be very hard. And it turned out to be 1,000 times harder than what I thought. But the first thing that I needed to do was make the sound. Or I thought maybe I can, download a sound off the internet or find a sound somewhere. But look, because I work in advertising, I've got a lot of contacts and connections. Like I knew people who worked at a big sound studio, and I put a one-page thing together about this idea and what I was aiming to do and what I needed, and I pitched it to the sound studio, and they're like, "We're 100% in. We're going to help you make the sound. We'll do anything else that you need to get you, to make this happen." So Rumble Studios were kind of like the first piece in the puzzle to help me get this thing made. That was the first step, Clayton. Yeah. Shall I go into the next step? Because there's at least 20 steps here.
Exactly. And then what we might do is we're going to play a couple of those sounds, and at the end of this conversation, we might play those. So keep going there, and then we'll play some sounds later.
Okay, great. Look, as soon as a big sound studio said that they were going to help make the sounds, I was like, okay, I'm 100% doing this project. And then after that, the next step was I had to get a machine. I wasn't going to create a losing sound and then just like have it sitting on a website and like just let it do nothing. So from then, I got hold of a machine. It was a very hard process to get hold of the machine, by the way. I'm not sure if you want me to go into the process, but I'm going to say I had to buy it illegally.
Right. Okay.
because they are licensed. They're very hard to get hold of. I called people who owned pubs. I rang up prop hire, like party hire places. No one had a machine that you could borrow or rent. So I eventually had to buy one off the mafia.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a whole other experience, I'd imagine.
It was a bit scary. But so now I've got the sound, I've got the machine, and then the next step was I had a few people sort of helping me out by now, and everyone helped out for free. Like everyone was just into this cause and helping. And we crowdsourced a bunch of real gamblers, real people who played these machines off Facebook. And then we held a kind of unknowing test day where they came in and tested out this machine. They didn't know what was going to happen. They knew that there was some change to it. And we had secret cameras in the poker machine. We had people like with cameras, left and right. So we were monitoring the reactions and results of real players to this new losing sound.
What we're going to do is we're going to pause there. We're going to come back in a couple of minutes' time. We'll hear some of these sounds and some of what occurred. What was their reaction? What actually did happen? That's on the way in just a couple of minutes' time with Neil Walshe, the man behind Losing Sound. We're going to let you be a part of this change as well. That's on the way next here on Towards Understanding.
Share your brand, your event, your message across 90 Christian radio stations and major cities in Australia and New Zealand by sponsoring Towards Understanding, hosted by Clayton Bielen. More than 210,000 people tune into Towards Understanding each week, and with just one sponsorship, you'll reach this immense engaged audience. Find out more about this exciting and unique opportunity now on the sponsorship page at positivemedia.com.au.
If you've just joined us, we've been hearing the story of the fact that Neil had a close relative who lost like $150,000 on the Pokies, and ever since is like, this is not okay. Was with some mates, they were playing the Pokies, and he was standing there just with his mates doing it, and realised there was only winning sounds in this Pokies room, but no losing sounds, and yet his mates weren't winning. And so decided, well, maybe this is the go. Ended up with a pokey machine, has loaded on these sounds, and then invited people in to play it. They didn't know exactly what was going on, and that's where we got up to in the story. Neil, take us through what happened next. What was the reaction, and what was the impact of these sounds?
Okay, so look, there was quite a good reaction. So out of all the players, we surveyed them before and after the experiment, and we also filmed the reactions of them. And what came out was that all the players became aware of their losses. Right? And in interviews, what they said before is that they would get to the end without realizing that they'd been losing.
Fascinating.
So they're now aware of their losses. They know how much money's going down. And this is the big bit, because Australia gambles $12 billion a year in the Pokies. Their desire to play the machine halved.
Wow.
So when I do that math, that means that we could take that gambling loss down to $6 billion a year rather than $12 billion.
It's just incredible, isn't it? We mentioned, I think 20% of pokies in the world are in Australia. So the more that we can do to impact, that is just, were you even thinking you would get close to that sort of results off that test, Neil, when you went into it?
No, I really hoped, and actually there was everyone who was helping out on that experiment was just there hoping the first time the first person was playing it, we're like, come on. Like when this sound plays out, we really hope that something, like their visceral reaction was of disgust. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like usually they're playing and they're happy, they're in a trance, they're just loving it. They're losing their money, but the sounds are going off. And this time, the losing sounds came out, and you could just see their reactions, the scowls on the face. They did not like it.
Yeah.
But once they were interviewed afterwards and realised what was going on, they all agreed that it should be put into the machine.
Yeah. Well, isn't that fascinating? People who are regularly doing it, and they are saying, yeah, actually go into the machines, because that moment could have actually flipped the other way, right? Hey, yeah, I get that was helping, but no, don't put it in, because I want to keep going the way I was going. That's fascinating too.
Exactly. Clayton, do you want to hear some of the sounds?
Oh, I would love to. Yes, please.
Okay, so this was the main one that we played them, but we did experiment with a few different ones. So I'll play the main losing sound. Ready? So that was inspired. These are all inspired by video games, because that sort of game over sound, it's hardwired into your mind from childhood. You know, we've all played Nintendo and Sega growing up, and that is the sound that you hear. I'll play another one.
Yeah. They all have this sort of downward feel to them, in a sense.
They did, actually. And there was some psychology research in the sound studio saying that the minor tones and the descending notes, it causes distress inside your mind.
Nice. Yeah.
So that's why they all have that similar sound.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Here's the fourth one. Little stab sound at the end.
Yeah.
One more. I definitely think that came from maybe Space Invaders or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and then there was a couple of a little bit more sort of silly ones that we tried, but these weren't the ones that we ended up testing with.
You lose.
Yeah, fair enough as well.
We actually created about 30, and then a bunch of people listened to them and whittled them down to the final, few that were going to be sampled on the day.
Yeah, I love that. And then I know since then too, right? So this was the experiment. You did this. You got these results from people who are playing the Pokies, and they realised this. And now I know that you've actually done a couple of things on the back of this, including at losingsound.com, where you can actually see the video of these players and things like that as well. But you've actually provided these sounds technically for free if anyone would want to use it, which I love as well.
Absolutely. They're free to download. I've put them online. I've tagged Aristocrat and Capcom in. They can take them. They can add them to their game files for free as soon as they want.
Yeah. Now, unfortunately, I'm guessing they haven't taken that option up yet, though.
They haven't. And would this be a good time to mention that we're trying to get a petition?
Yes, please. That was exactly where I was leading you, Neil, for sure.
I love it. I love it. So there is also a petition on the website, and it is basically we're trying to get 20,000 signatures. And if we can get that many, that earns you a debate in Parliament. So we can actually go into there and have some MPs talking about whether losing sounds should become legislation.
It sounds like such a simple idea and something that at minimum should be debated, right? Like as we said, we talked about 20% of the world's entire pokies are here in Australia. $12, $13 billion is being lost on it. It is a huge industry that is causing real harm to so many around our nation. You think the absolute least we can do is actually have a debate. So that is a fantastic thing to do. Once again, you can get to that. You can watch the video. You can find out more about this at losingsound.com. All the links to the petition are there as well. Is that right, Neil?
Absolutely. They're right there.
Excellent. All right, losingsound.com. We're going to put that wherever you find any of the links for this show as well. We're going to be putting that so you can go through, click on that. Is there a time frame that you're hoping to make sure you get these signatures by? Is there sort of a cutoff in that way, or just as soon as somebody can get on, that's the deal?
Look, if we could get them tonight, that would be amazing. But over the course of the next few weeks,
Excellent.
We're aiming to get as many as we can.
Absolutely love that. In terms of alongside that, I'm assuming that because of the work that you've done, you're doing things like, chatting to people like me. Are you actually having conversations with, other politicians potentially, or with those who are actually in this Pokies space or across it in different ways. Have you been invited into other spaces to talk about this and had those influences as well?
I have indeed. So, look, I've chatted on Batuta Advocate. Those guys are a satirical newspaper, but they are very serious journalists, and they did a big piece on it. We've been on the front page of Nine, SMH, and I've been chatting to there's about 4 or 5 different MPs who they love the initiative, and they're just seeing how it's going to fit into their agenda, because every politician has their own things that they're already pushing. The Greens, so we've got Kate Fernham from the Greens, Alex Greenwich from the Independents, also chatting to Dave Pocott and Andrew Wilkie.
I think this is one of those things as well where, trying to say, all right, we're getting rid of all Pokies, which I think probably you and I would both be, that's actually a good win, but maybe it's just one step too far right now for this first moment. To at least say, well, hold on a second, let's even just add a losing sound effect to it. We're not even trying to say you can't run it, you can't operate it. We're not trying to change any of that legislation of how many or what it is, but let's just add this one change. Seems like an obvious first step, which I so hope that so many people step into. As people are sort of chatting to you about it and you explain what you're doing, is that the sort of reaction that most people are giving you as well? And you're like, well, of course we should do this. Yeah,
it does come down to that. Like, a lot of my friends would have disowned me if I said, let's destroy all the Pokies. But when you say that it's actually harm minimization, right? Like, adding these sounds is going to stop the really addicted gambler from potentially losing something big, right?
Yeah.
But they can still be at the pubs. You can still go in and have a slap after you've had your meal, and you might win and you might lose. It's not changing any of that. It's just evening up the playing field.
I love it. Losingsound.com. We are very much encouraging everybody to go and sign that petition. Losingsound.com. Neil, thank you so much for, not just thinking about the idea, but then acting it and certainly coming on and sharing it with us today as well. We wish you all the best with that. Hope we get that debate and then some action out of that as well. Thanks again for your time.
That'd be amazing. Thank you, Clayton.
Neil Walshe, my guest here on Towards Understanding.